Hello, everyone. Welcome to Yachting International Radio. You're with Karine Rayson from the Crew Coach on the Wellbeing project. So we're very fortunate to have Larisa with us, especially around the subject of well-being, because we're going to unpack well-being in a very different context. Larisa has 20 plus experience as a nurse and a chiropractor. Welcome, Larisa. So lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here, to be with this interesting crew.
Yeah, so I know we're going to tackle the nervous system, which I think is so crucial, especially in our industry, because I think we overburden our nervous system with the pace that we're going, the lack of rest, and the lifestyle that we lead. So it would be so interesting to hear a bit of context around that. But before we do, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, because I know your approach is holistic and I'm all for that. I think it's so important, but you seem to specialize in health and aging. Is that correct?
Correct. Optimal aging. So no matter where we are, starting to identify and lead our best lives possible, like in the moment. Even if it is the way we sip our coffee or the way we savor a drink, but starting lean into that ideal lifestyle that we're playing as a movie in our mind, that would be like making it.
Okay, so how does that connect to aging?
Good question. That is a very good question. So we want to find this optimal way of living wherever we are with whatever we have in the moment. And by doing that, and I call it sinking into the basics, because we think often when there's a lot of demands on us, rising to the occasion is what there is to do. And the research shows what there is to do is actually to sink into basics. And that's what they do in the military. They actually really teach basics really well. So in the time of stress, we go even deeper into these basics and habits that sustain us optimally. To keep us in that neutral state, as you said, there's so many demands that we are in the go-go, the rush. So that neurochemistry is not conducive to long-term living and optimal living.
That's really fascinating.
That's how it. And even in the moment where we're able to descend in the all is well, in the parasympathetic state in the moment, even when there is chaos around us or someone is shouting, there's maybe what our nervous system might perceive it's not safe. The more we can descend into the neutral and observe and witness, the more optimal decisions we can make. That's why it's so advantageous to us to learn how to descend into our calm nervous system, into parasympathetic state, so we can make the best decision possible in that moment with all the data presented. Does that make sense?
It does. And so important, because in our industry, there is a lot of reports around toxic leadership, and that can really put you into fight, freeze response. So when our sympathetic nervous system is engaged, also having to live and work with each other every single day, you're going to come across interpersonal conflict. And when you are tired and stressed, very difficult to respond in the approach that you've just described.
Because it's small quarters, it's same people, it's same patterns. There is a blessing, because whatever's being uncovered or whatever's being triggered is something that can be dealt with. So it's almost that analogy of when somebody bumps a cup, and whatever spills out of it is what's inside. If I have coffee inside, coffee will spill. I have water in here with a cucumber. Another way to bring our nervous system into calm is our water. The most way to absorb nutrients from it and just be electrifying for our bodies to add a fruit or cucumber, like in my case, for example. So when we add a cucumber or a lemon or orange or any fruit, the water becomes more bioavailable. And going back to the example of when we get bumped, when we getting triggered on that ship in that experience, it's whatever already is inside our cup is spilling. So we can be grateful that maybe rage or shame or guilt or not good enough is spilling, because we can handle it. Because it's not like that situation created that. It might seem that way. It might seem that they're creating that in us. But reality is it's actually our own neurochemistry that's being reactive to the situation. And I know that in our society, like being quick with our words, like responding the right thing, probably so valued because then we're seen as smart and competent. So sometimes maybe even pondering or processing seem like we're not good enough, like we're stunned by it. So the technique I have for the situation when it becomes triggering to us, to self-regulate ourselves, so being aware of that pattern. What does it feel like when I'm triggered? Do I get hot in the face? Do I get numb, or do I even float out of my body and almost see it from a side and start critiquing myself? So like identifying how it looks for us, neutralizing it with our breath and our posture, and then starting recreating the other person or narrating the situation. We don't need to respond, we can just start repeating back to what that person is saying, narrating the situation. And in that sense, everything starts to come down and the other person starts to come down because they feel like they're being heard.
Yes, that makes sense.
And that gives us time to process it even in our head as we're speaking it. So we could be saying like, what I hear you say is this, and like we repeat back what they're saying. Even if it could be detrimental about us, we could actually be repeating back. Like, you might be saying that I'm lazy, or you might be saying that I'm incompetent, and this is why. So the other person can also hear themselves, and they might have a kind of, oh, wait a minute, that's not what I meant.
Yes, absolutely. And it's such a powerful tool that we use in counseling as well as the reflecting, active listening, which is crucial. I had one of my members bring a situation to me last week, and I'm curious to know your thoughts around it. She was triggered. So she's a chef on board, and a particular individual, a stewardess, she was on service and she was asking the guests what they would like for breakfast. And it was apparently eggs on toast. So instead of asking the guests, what type of egg would you like? And whether it be soft, hard, medium, the chef then she felt very frustrated because she was just told eggs and toast. And she's like, what am I supposed to do with this information? And I know we're going to talk about values. And I thought it could be a conflict in values as well, because she might not, I know we're going to talk about high values, but as we prioritize our values in a particular way, and what might be your priority might not necessarily be my priority. And that's okay. That's okay. But I think this is where communication is so important. So for example, the chef was very upset because she wasn't told the right information. You're under a time pressure, and you should know this by now. You are in a senior rank and it's common sense. And I'm trying to work out what is the trigger and how do I handle the situation? Because in Australia, I don't know if it's a worldwide saying, we say, spot it, you've got it. So if you're irritated by something, there might be a mirror being held up in front of you, and it's something within you that you need to address. So she's trying to work out what the dissonance was for her to be able to move forward, because it's impacting her in other areas where she doesn't want to spend time with this crew member. And she's a lovely person, but I feel very irritated by her behavior. So how would you suggest one?
That is a great example. So thank you for that. And so amazing for that crew person, for the chef to be reflecting back. And I'm sure she probably reflected back to herself things like, I want to deliver on time. I want to be part of the team. And now this incomplete information is stopping the flow, and time is being wasted because now we need to be sent back and clarify things, and more words have to be exchanged. So I see their frustration and the question. So having a phrase to go to, I would say that would be my advice. Like for me, I'm very quick to say there has been a miscommunication, like very quickly, versus trying to find whose fault it is, but just acknowledging there has been miscommunication and clarifying in that moment, but then addressing it at a later time when everyone's calm and slept on it and given it time. And like you said, really pondered on the high values and to see where we connect with that individual. Just like Chef said, they are a lovely person. So that's the connection. When we find something unifying between us, then it's easier to move forward than to keep finding what separates us. So that would be another step. So the unifying pieces also, they're on the same ship and they're going to be committed to a certain amount of time. So they know how much time they want to ship together. So that's unifying.
Okay. So bringing it back down to the common objective, this is what we're trying to achieve collectively. And I can't do that without you. And I need your help to be able to achieve that.
And because maybe what it takes is actually to identify the basic steps of taking an order, which might seem so simple, but maybe it's something that gets reviewed every trip or halfway through and being like, what are the basics of taking an order? I think that's something military would do. Like they do practice making the beds and cleaning their guns. And it's not my favorite example to bring into the military. However, they did really study effectiveness and workability and achieving something on a common goal. Common goal could be questionable what military tries to achieve. However, the way they work together, they're very productive because a lot of money goes into studying systems. So we can derive a lot from them and apply it into everyday world. And is Yacht world like a little bit related to command system as well? There's
hierarchical structure. Yeah.
Yes. So I was thinking that's an interesting place too.
In our membership, we've got a captain.
And there must...
Sorry, you go. You finish.
I was saying, so because there is hierarchical system, so I assume there's also a very big component where crew is social, where there's probably, I'm assuming drinking or like that bonding. So there's like on the court, and then there's like the bonding part, I would imagine.
It definitely is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's how it works. But yeah, we do have a captain in our membership who has a military background and went to Afghanistan, for example. And I should really ask him, I'm going to tag him in this interview to hear about how he experienced systems and how it worked, because essentially on board, all our roles are connected to a system to actually make it functional. So I'd love to hear his perspective and just hearing your interview, your knowledge, and him simulating his background in the military and his role as a captain and how he can see it from a holistic approach. Thank you. That was so helpful, Larisa. So, Larisa, I know you're coming in. We're so lucky to have you as a guest expert. And we are going to address values and how to determine our high values, and then practicing self-regulation of your nervous system, which I think is so important for us to be able to learn these techniques that you're giving us so we can be independent. So when the moments arise, it doesn't become a crisis and we freak out going, I don't know what to do here, but you're prepping us with the skills that we need to know to manage it independently. And then skills on how to approach high tension situations, which happens all the time in yachting. So that's very exciting. And then obviously how to gain a new perspective around. So thrilled to have you, Larisa, as a guest expert. Can you tell us a little bit about how people can find you? Because you sound like you're a wealth of knowledge. And the best part is it's so applicable what you're sharing with us to yachting. So how can people find you? And I know at the beginning of the interview, I'm like, do you do online sessions with your clients? Because obviously being yachties, we're constantly moving, so very hard to get in a port and see a specific person. So it's fantastic that you actually offer that opportunity as well. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about how we can find you or any resources that you have.
Thank you so much for asking that. The best way to find me is by searching by my name on Facebook or on Instagram. That's the most two platforms that I'm on.
Is it just your first and last name, Larisa, and then
if they search for my first and last name, it'll come up. My Instagram handle is drlarisa.life.
Oh, okay.
And
And
my first one should lead them to it as well.
fantastic. And you spell Larisa Larisa. So there's no double R, there's no double S. Yeah, just to make that clear. And we'll have obviously all the details in the description of this interview so you can find Larisa. Thank you so much.
And Karine, may I leave everyone with a teaser?
Please,
So
yes.
the teaser would be, because we talked about the high values. So my teaser is to start thinking, if you were to host a dinner, so anyone who's listening, if you were to host a dinner or attend a dinner, money's not a problem. Is it your favorite restaurant or favorite catering? Who are the 10 people you want to have there? And you just start thinking about those 10 favorite people, and it could be alive or dead. Start thinking why, what do you appreciate about them? And I'm giving it away, but that's your high values. So if you were to invite Albert Einstein, for example, because he's so smart, then the smartness or the science is like one of your high values. So I want to start people to start thinking what their high values are in life. And we'll do a little bit more of that on the call and see how to apply these high values to our advantage.
And I think that's the operative word there is application. Because it's one thing knowing your values, but if you don't know how to apply them, or if you're not conscious of what they are and not living intentionally, as you said at the start of the interview, then I think you're going to experience likely unfulfillment and dissatisfaction in your life.
And a lot of, I guess, like bumps. Like, why am I bumping my head against things like these blind spots?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. And can't wait to have you in the membership.